My hands went cold before my mind caught up to why. I was sitting in my ready room aboard the fleet carrier Ironville, drinking coffee that had gone bitter an hour ago, reviewing fuel reports that nobody cared about except me. Then the Priority 1 signal hit my desk, and the small red light on my console began to blink in a pattern I had seen only twice in my entire career. Both times, people had died. I opened the encrypted file, my screen filled with faces, small faces, children, 47 of them. The youngest looked about 4 years old. The oldest maybe 15, all human, all missing. I stopped breathing for a moment. I am Admiral Harold Brooks, commander of the 7th Human Expeditionary Fleet, and I have seen many terrible things in my 53 years of life. But I had not seen this. Not like this. 3 weeks ago, a civilian colony transport called the Morning Light had vanished in a region of space we called the Vextaral Reach. The Vextaral Dominion, the ruling power of that region, had sent us a sorrowful message. They said the ship had been lost to a stellar storm. They said there was nothing anyone could have done. They had even sent gifts of grain and cloth as a sign of their sorrow. I had believed them. The whole coalition had believed them. Now I was looking at video footage that proved every word had been a lie. The footage had been smuggled out by a Krillian merchant named Tev, a small gray-furred trader who had risked his life and the lives of his family to get it to us. In the video, I saw the 47 children alive. I saw them locked inside small metal rooms with thick bars. I saw them being sold like cargo, to rich buyers from other worlds who walked along rows of cells and pointed at the ones they wanted. I turned off the screen. I put my face in my hands. I sat like that for maybe 1 minute, maybe less, I do not remember. Then I stood up and walked to my personal terminal and began reading everything we knew about the Vextaral Dominion. What I learned made me sit down again. The Vextaral had been doing this for 11 years. 11. They had taken children from other species, 2 small species that had no fleets, no power, no voice. The Moravex had lost children. The Tilani had lost children. The Bren had lost children. None of these species had fleets strong enough to answer. None of them had been listened to when they tried to complain. Humanity simply had not been on the list before. We were new to this part of space. The Vextaral had decided we were fair game. They had decided wrong. I pressed the comm button on my desk. My voice, when it came out, sounded like someone else's voice. Steady, cold, a voice I had never used before. Get me Earth Command, Prime Minister's office, Priority 1, now. My aide, a young officer named Peter Hollies, answered from the outer room. Sir, the Prime Minister is in a private dinner. Protocol says we should route through her Chief of Staff first. Peter. Yes, sir. Break the protocol. There was a pause of exactly 2 seconds. Then he said, yes, sir. I waited. I watched the small stars through my window. They looked the same as they had always looked, cold and bright and far away. I wondered how many of them had children on them who would never come home. The screen came alive. Prime Minister Grace Whitmore looked back at me. She was in a plain blue jacket, her hair tied back, clearly pulled straight from whatever event she had been attending. Her eyes found mine and she knew at once. She had worked with me for 11 years. She could read my face the way I could read hers. Harold, tell me. I told her. I sent the file. I watched her face as she watched it. I watched a woman who had argued for peace in 300 different hearings and debates, a woman who had spent her life believing that words could solve what weapons could not, watch 47 children being sold. She did not look away. She watched the whole thing. When it was done, she closed her eyes for a long moment. When she opened them again, something had changed inside them. Something had decided. Harold, she said. Her voice was like iron that had been left out in the cold. Bring them home. Yes, ma'am. All of them. Yes, ma'am. And Harold. Ma'am. Make sure every species in this galaxy understands, clearly and without any room for doubt, what happens when someone touches our children. I do not want them to misunderstand. I do not want them to forget. I want this understood the way gravity is understood. Am I clear? I looked at the woman on my screen, this woman who had never in her life authorized a single aggressive action, and I felt the weight of what she had just handed me. I felt the weight of what she was trusting me to carry. You are clear, ma'am. Go. The screen went dark. I stood up. I walked to the door of my ready room. I stopped for 1 second and looked at a small framed picture on my wall. It was a picture of my granddaughter Lily, age 7, holding a yellow flower she had picked in her mother's garden. She had given me this picture 2 months ago. She had told me it was so I would not forget her face while I was far away. I would not forget her face. I would not forget any of their faces, none of them. I opened the door and walked onto the bridge of the Ironville. Every officer in the room looked up. They had not heard from me in over an hour, which was unusual. They could see my face. They could see that something had shifted. My second-in-command, Captain Margaret Holloway, stood up from the command chair. She was 42 years old, sharp as a blade, and she had served with me for 6 years. She took one look at me and said nothing. She simply waited. Margaret. Sir. Bring the fleet to combat readiness. Every ship, all systems. I want readiness confirmation within the hour. The bridge went very quiet. Every officer there had heard me give orders before. None of them had ever heard me give this one. Sir, Margaret said carefully, may I ask the situation? I thought about how to say it. I thought about all the careful diplomatic words I could use, all the formal language, all the proper ways. Then I simply said the truth. The Vextyrol have been taking children, human children, along with children from many other species. They have been selling them for 11 years. They told us the morning light was lost to a storm. They lied. The children are alive. We are going to get them back. I watched the faces of my officers change. I watched young Lieutenant Harper at the communications station go pale. I watched old Commander Briggs at navigation close his eyes for a second. I watched Margaret's jaw tighten until I could see the muscles move. All of them, sir, Margaret asked quietly. All of them, Captain, every child, human and otherwise. We will not leave a single one behind. Is that clear to everyone in this room? Yes, sir, said 20 voices at once. Good, set course for the Vextyrol Reach. Weapons hot. Full combat formation. And someone get me every galactic ambassador on open channel within the hour. They are going to want to watch this. I walked to my command chair and sat down. I placed my hands on the arms of the chair. I felt the hum of the great engines beneath me as the ship prepared to move. Margaret stepped close to me. She spoke so that only I could hear. Harold, are you certain? Once we cross into their space, there is no going back. I looked up at her. I thought about Lily and her yellow flower. I thought about 47 small faces in small cages. I thought about 11 years of silence from small species whose children had been taken while the rest of the galaxy looked the other way. Margaret, I said quietly, I have never been more certain of anything in my entire life. Someone has to answer for this, and the galaxy needs to see who we are when we answer. She nodded once, she stepped back, she went to her station. The great engines came alive. The Ironville turned in the dark, and behind her, 240 ships of the 7th Human Expeditionary Fleet turned with her, like a great slow shadow shifting across the stars. I watched the viewport as the slipspace window opened before us, a long tunnel of blue light, waiting to carry us across the gap. I thought about what was waiting on the other side. I thought about the Vextyrol High Magnate sitting in his palace, believing that 11 years of silence meant 11 more, believing that small voices stayed small, believing that distance was safety. He was about to learn otherwise. I looked at my granddaughter's picture one more time in my mind. Then I gave the order. Take us in. The fleet moved. The stars bent. The Vextaro Reach waited ahead of us in the cold and the dark, not knowing yet what was coming for them. But they would know soon. Very soon. I was 3 steps from the embassy front door when my assistant caught up to me, breathless, holding a tablet in her trembling gray paws. Ambassador, you need to see this, now. My name is Cyril Thon, and I have been the Krillian ambassador to the Human Coalition for 9 years. I am small by most species standards. I stand about as high as a human's chest. My fur is soft gray, my eyes are large and dark, and I come from a species that has spent most of its history avoiding trouble rather than causing it. I thought I understood humans. I had lived among them for nearly a decade. I had eaten their food, learned their languages, watched their children grow in the embassy gardens. I had written long reports to my home world explaining that humans were kind, curious, sometimes foolish, and generally gentle. I was about to learn that I had only ever seen them calm. I took the tablet from my assistant, a young Krillian named Pev, and looked at the screen. The footage was already playing on every open channel in charted space. The human admiral had broadcast it to everyone at once. No filtering, no diplomatic softening. The raw truth, delivered directly into the living rooms and council chambers of 1,000 worlds. I watched for 30 seconds before I had to sit down on the embassy steps. 47 human children, in cages, being sold. I knew, before the footage even finished, that my career was about to become very difficult, because I knew something the humans were only beginning to suspect. The Krillians had known, not officially, not as a government, but many of us had suspected for years that the Vextaro were doing something terrible in their inner territories. We had not said anything. We had not investigated. We had let it alone because the Vextaro controlled 3 major trade routes that our economy depended on, and making trouble was not our way. Now the humans had pulled the curtain back for everyone, and every species in the galaxy was about to have to decide what they had known, and when they had known it, and why they had said nothing. I stood up slowly. I looked up at the tall glass tower of the Human Coalition building across the plaza from our embassy. Every screen in that tower was showing the same footage. Humans were gathering on the plaza in silence, thousands of them just standing there, watching. I had never seen a human crowd this quiet. Pev came up beside me. Ambassador, the High Council is calling from home. They want to speak with you immediately. They say it is the most urgent call of the past 50 years. I imagine it is, Pev. I walked back into the embassy. My paws felt heavy. The long hallway to my office seemed longer than usual. I passed other Krillian staff, all of them silent, all of them watching screens, all of them understanding the same thing I was understanding. A reckoning was coming, and none of us were ready for it. I sat at my desk and opened the secure channel to my home world. The faces of the 7 members of the Krillian High Council appeared on my screen. The eldest, Matriarch Vel Ren, spoke first. Her fur had gone almost white with age, and her voice was quiet but steady. Cyril, have you seen the broadcast? Yes, Matriarch. Have you seen the human response? Their Prime Minister has issued a single statement, one sentence. She said, "There will be no peace talks. There will be consequences." Their fleet is already moving, Matriarch. The 7th Fleet crossed into Vextaro space 6 hours ago. The council members looked at one another. I could see the weight of the decision on all of their faces. Councillor Den Vash, the youngest of them, spoke next. Ambassador, the council has voted. The vote was unanimous. We are requesting permission to join the human fleet, not as observers, as combatants. I thought I had misheard him. I am sorry, Counselor, could you repeat that? We wish to join the human operation, Cyril, officially, with warships, with soldiers. I sat very still, Krillians do not fight. We have not fought in anything larger than a local skirmish in over 200 years. We are traders. We are scholars. We do not send warships to other people's wars. Except apparently we were about to. Matriarch, I said carefully, may I ask why? Matriarch Vel Ren looked at me for a long moment. Then she said something I will remember until the day I die. Because we knew, Cyril, not officially, not in any way we could be punished for, but many of us suspected, and we did nothing because the Vextarl were too useful to us. Now the humans have shown us what we should have done 11 years ago, and they are going to do it whether we join them or not. If we do not stand beside them now, every Krillian alive will carry this shame for the rest of their days, and so will every generation that comes after us. I will not leave that to my grandchildren. Not for a trade route, not for anything. I had never heard her speak like that. I had never heard any Krillian leader speak like that. I will deliver the request, Matriarch. Do it now, Cyril, time is short. I ended the call. I sat at my desk. I looked at the wall of my office where I had hung a gift from the human Prime Minister 7 years ago. It was a small framed piece of paper with a short poem on it, something the humans called a haiku. The Prime Minister had written it for me herself. It read, "Two species, one sky." Learning slowly what it means. To be good neighbors. I had thought it was sweet when she gave it to me, a little bit silly, a pleasant diplomatic gesture. Now I understood that she had been telling me something all those years ago, something I had been too comfortable to hear. Being neighbors meant more than sharing borders. Being neighbors meant watching out for each other's children. Being neighbors meant noticing, caring, acting. My species had failed that test. I stood up. I put on my formal diplomatic robe, the one I only wore for the most serious occasions. I walked across the plaza, through the gathering human crowds to the Human Coalition building. The people in the plaza parted from me as I walked. Some of them nodded. One human woman, holding a small child on her shoulder, met my eyes and placed a hand over her heart. I nodded back. I had never felt the weight of another species' grief quite so clearly. Inside the tower, I asked to see the Prime Minister. I was told she was in an emergency session. I said I would wait. I did not wait long. Prime Minister Grace Whitmore came out of her meeting room within 10 minutes. She looked tired. She looked like she had not slept, but her eyes were clear and sharp, and she greeted me as a friend. "Cyril, I am glad you came. Prime Minister, the Krillian High Council has sent me with a formal request. Oh, we wish to join your fleet, with warships, with soldiers. We wish to stand beside you in what is coming." She went very still. She looked at me for a long moment. Then she did something I had not expected. She reached out and took my small gray paw in both of her hands. "Cyril, do your people understand what they are asking? There will be a cost. There will be pain. There may be losses." "They understand, Prime Minister. They understand better than I did until this morning. And they also understand that not standing beside you would cost more in the end than standing beside you ever could." She was silent for a long time. I could see her thinking through what this meant. The Krillians joining was not a small thing. Other species would be watching. Other species might follow. Finally she nodded. "Then welcome to the fleet, Ambassador. We are honored." "The honor is ours, Prime Minister." I walked back to the embassy in the fading evening light. More species had begun to gather at the plaza. I saw a Moravex family, tall and pale and silver-skinned. I saw 2 Tilani elders, their long robes brushing the ground. I saw representatives of species I barely recognized, small ones, poor ones who had been ignored for years. All of them had come because of what the humans had done. All of them had come because the humans had listened when no one else had. I passed by one of the Moravex, an older female, her silver skin lined with age. She was holding a small photograph. I stopped and asked gently if I could see it. It was a child, A Moravex girl, perhaps 8 years old, with the same silver skin and wide violet eyes as the woman. "Your daughter." "My granddaughter," the old Moravex said. "She was taken 9 years ago. We were told she was lost to a ship accident. We were told there was nothing to be done." I looked at the picture. I looked at the old woman's face. "There is something to be done now," I said. She nodded, tears filled her violet eyes. "Yes," she whispered, "finally there is." I went back to my office. I sat at my desk. I began writing the formal documents that would commit the Krillian species to the first war it had joined in 200 years. My paws did not shake, for the first time in my career. I felt that I was doing exactly what needed to be done. Somewhere out in the dark, the human fleet was approaching the Vextaral Reach. Somewhere out in the dark, 47 human children and many others were waiting to be brought home. We were going to help bring them home, all of them. And the galaxy, I understood now, would never be the same again. We came out of slipspace hard and close, and the Vextaral border fleet was waiting. My name is Captain Aliner Pike, commander of the strike carrier Red Wing, and that was the moment I knew my life was about to be divided into everything that came before and everything that came after. 42 Vextaral warships sat in a loose formation in front of us. Their shapes were ugly, blocky, with long spines jutting out from each side. They had arranged themselves in what their culture considered a respectful greeting formation, as if this were a diplomatic meeting, as if we had come to talk. We had not come to talk. My communications officer, Lieutenant Daniel Price, turned to me with a pale face. "Captain, they are hailing us. The lead vessel is requesting a formal parley." "Route it through to the fleet flagship, Daniel. Admiral Brooks will handle it. Our job is simpler." "Yes, ma'am." I pulled up the fleet-wide channel on my personal screen. Admiral Brooks' voice came through clear and steady, the kind of voice that did not need to be loud because everyone who heard it already knew to listen. "All vessels of the 7th Fleet and all Allied vessels, this is Admiral Brooks. Listen carefully because I will not repeat myself. Rules of engagement are as follows. If they have our children, we get our children. If they resist, we remove the resistance. If they surrender, we accept the surrender, but we do not forget what was done here. We are not here to teach a lesson. We are here to recover what was stolen. Every child comes home. Every single one, human or otherwise. Is that clear?" 240 human ships responded at once, along with 60 Krillian vessels, 40 Moravex fast runners, and a scattered group of smaller Allied craft that had joined us in the past 40 hours. "Clear, Admiral." I felt something in my chest settle. I had been a captain for 7 years. I had trained for combat every one of those years. I had never fired a weapon at another ship in anger. I did not want to. No one on my bridge wanted to. But we would. If that was what it took to get those children home, we would. The Vextaral lead vessel began transmitting on the open fleet channel, apparently trying to bypass the Admiral and speak directly to all of us. Their speaker was a tall, bony creature with red skin and a long, thin mouth. His voice was oily and practiced. "Human vessels, we protest this unlawful incursion. Vextaral space is sovereign. You have no jurisdiction here. The matter of the children is an internal cultural matter. We request an immediate diplomatic session to discuss the situation with appropriate respect for both cultures." The fleet channel was silent for exactly 3 seconds. Then Admiral Brooks spoke, and his voice was the coldest I had ever heard it. "You lost the right to the word culture when you put children in cages. You lost the right to the word sovereign when you used your sovereignty to sell them. You have one chance and only one. Open your records. Surrender every child in your possession. Surrender the officials responsible. Do it now and there will be a trial. Refuse, and there will still be a trial, but there will be more work between now and then." The Vextaral speaker's face changed. His practiced calm cracked. For the first time, I could see real fear in his eyes. "Admiral, you cannot simply invade a sovereign power. The Galactic Council will." "The Galactic Council is watching this broadcast just like everyone else, and they are not going to stop me. Do you know why? Because they know what is right and what is wrong, and so does every decent species in this galaxy. You have 30 seconds. The Vextaral speaker began talking faster, pleading, threatening, citing laws and treaties and old agreements. 30 seconds passed. The Admiral did not speak again. He simply gave the order through the fleet channel. "All weapons target the enemy command vessel only. Disable, do not destroy, fire." The sky in front of us lit up. 100 precision beams crossed the space between our fleet and theirs. They struck the Vextaral flagship across its weapons and engines. Not the bridge, not the crew sections, just the parts that could hurt us or run away from us. The flagship went dark. Its weapons arrays fell silent. Its engines cooled. It drifted, still whole, still full of living Vextaral, unable to fight or flee. The other 41 Vextaral warships saw what we had done. They saw the precision. They saw the restraint. They saw that we had chosen to disable rather than destroy. And they ran. 38 of them turned and fled back toward their home systems. 3 held their positions, frozen, their captains apparently unable to decide what to do. Admiral Brooks spoke again on the fleet channel. "Let the runners run. They are carrying word of what we are, and they will do our work for us. Disable the 3 that stayed. Boarding parties prepare for infiltration. We know where the auction stations are. We know where the children are. Move." My ship, the Red Wing, had been assigned to the 3rd auction station. We had studied the layout for 11 days. Every officer on my bridge had memorized the face of every human child we were coming to collect. We had their names, their ages, their hometowns. We had the names of their parents. We had the songs their parents had sung to them. We had practiced until we could walk the station with our eyes closed. I stood up from my command chair. "Marines to the boarding shuttles, pilots to stations. Lieutenant Price, you have the bridge." "Aye, ma'am." I went down to the Marine deck myself. I was not going to lead this boarding from the bridge. I was going to go in with them. I had told my Marines I would, and I keep my word. The Marine commander, Major Vincent Hale, was already suited up. He nodded at me as I put on my own armor. He was a quiet man, broad-shouldered, with kind eyes behind a hard face. He had 2 daughters of his own back on Earth. "Ready, Captain." "Ready, Major. Let us go get them." The shuttles dropped from the Red Wing and crossed the gap to the Vextaral auction station. The station was a large, ugly ring, spinning slowly in orbit around a small gray moon. The Vextaral defenders tried to lock their doors. They did not know that we had the station's internal codes, thanks to the Krillian merchant Tev who had risked everything to provide them. We came through the doors fast and quiet. The Vextaral guards dropped their weapons almost at once. They had been expecting slave buyers, not trained Marines. They surrendered. We cuffed them and moved on. We did not harm the ones who surrendered. Admiral Brooks' orders had been clear on this, and we followed them. We went through the station level by level. We found the main holding area on the 4th level. Major Hale opened the first door. I will not describe what I saw inside. I will only say that I saw children, and they were alive, and many of them were frightened, and some of them had forgotten how to trust anyone who came through a door. A small girl, about 6 years old, was hiding under a grate in the corner. I could see her dark eyes watching me through the slats. I knelt down at the grate. I took off my helmet so she could see my face. "Hello, sweetheart, my name is Alina. What is your name?" She did not answer. Her eyes were huge. "I came a long way to find you. Your mother is waiting for you. Her name is Claire. She asked me to come get you. Can I help you come out?" The girl stared at me for a long time. Then she whispered, "Amara." "Amara, that is a beautiful name. Your mother told me your favorite color is yellow. She told me you have a stuffed rabbit named Mr. Hops at home. She told me you have been so brave, and you have, Amara. You have been so brave, but you do not have to be brave anymore. It is my turn to be brave for you now." She reached up through the grate. Her small hand was thin and cold. I took her hand. I lifted the grate. I lifted her out. I held her against my chest, and I did not put her down. I walked her through the whole station like that, past the freed children being gathered by my Marines, past the surrendered Vextaral guards, all the way back to the shuttle. I did not put her down until I had handed her directly to a medic I knew was a mother herself, a woman named Patricia Holt who had promised me she would not leave any child alone. We recovered all 39 human children who had been held on that station. We also recovered 112 children of other species, Moravex children, Tilani children, small species whose names the galaxy had never bothered to learn. We took every single one of them, not just the humans, every child. We had not come this far to leave the others behind. The Vextaral station commander, a tall, red-skinned officer with dozens of medals on his uniform, tried to surrender directly to me as we were preparing to leave. He held out his weapon, handle first, and began a speech about honor and the rules of civilized combat. I looked at him for a long moment. I thought about a lot of things. I thought about Amara, who would not speak, who had hidden under a grate. I thought about my own young niece, who was about the same age. I thought about what this man had done. And then I thought about what Admiral Brooks had said. We are not here to teach a lesson. We are here to recover what was stolen. I took the commander's weapon. I had my Marines put him in cuffs. I did not harm him. I wanted the galaxy to see what a fair trial looked like. I wanted the galaxy to see that we did the things they would not expect us to do. You will face a trial, I told him. A real one, with witnesses, with evidence, with a judge. That is more than you gave any of these children, but it is what we do. He stared at me. I do not know if he understood. I do not know if it mattered. We loaded every child onto the shuttles. We loaded every prisoner. We pulled away from the station and brought them home to the Red Wing, where warm blankets and hot food and medical teams were waiting. I found the communications room and opened a channel to the parents who had been waiting on the far side of the galaxy for 3 weeks, not knowing if their children were alive or dead. I looked into the camera. This is Captain Alina Pike of the strike carrier Red Wing. We have recovered 39 human children from Vextaral Auction Station 3. We have also recovered 112 children of other species. All are alive. All are safe. All are coming home. To the parents watching this, I want you to hear me say these words. We got them. We got all of them. We are bringing them home to you. Tell their grandparents. Tell their brothers and sisters. Tell everyone. And tell the parents of every species whose children we have found. Their children are coming home too. No one will be left behind. No one. I turned off the channel. I sat down. I put my head in my hands for the first time in what felt like years. Then I stood up and went to check on Amara. She was sleeping in a small bunk in the medical bay, wrapped in 3 warm blankets. Medic Patricia Holt sat beside her, holding her small hand. "She is going to be all right, Captain," Patricia whispered. I nodded. I did not trust my voice for a moment. Across the fleet, I knew, other captains were finding other children. Other stations were being cleared. Other shuttles were lifting off with precious cargo. We were bringing them all home. Every single one. The Vextaral High Magnate stood in my courtroom, and he did not understand yet that his world had ended. My name is Chancellor Evelyn Mercer of the United Earth Judicial Authority, and I had spent 40 years of my life working toward a single belief, that the law, when applied fairly and without fear, was the strongest thing in the universe, stronger than fleets, stronger than fear, stronger than the worst that people could do to each other. Today, I was going to find out if I had been right. The courtroom had been built in 3 weeks. Earth Command had not wanted to delay. We had cleared an old auditorium in the capital city, brought in judges' benches, witness stands, and seating for 2,000 observers. Every major news channel in charted space had been given a live feed. Every species with a diplomatic presence on Earth had been given a seat. Those who could not attend in person had been given direct video links. The trial of the Vextaro leadership was going to be watched by more people, across more worlds, than any single event in the recorded history of the galaxy. Good, I wanted it watched. I wanted every single being to see what we were going to do here. The High Magnate, whose name was Rex Varen Call, was led in by 4 human marshals. He was tall, even for a Vextaro. His red skin had gone pale, but his eyes were still proud. He still believed he was going to walk out of this. He still believed that his rank, his position, his cultural claims would protect him. He had been raised his entire life to believe this. I understood. It would take time for him to understand the new world. The marshals seated him in the defendant's chair. I sat at the high bench in a simple black robe with the golden emblem of the coalition behind me. The courtroom fell silent. "This court is now in session," I said. "The case before us is the people of Earth, the people of Krylia, the people of Marivex, the people of Tilani, and the people of 15 other allied species, against the Vextaro ruling council, on charges of the taking and selling of children across a span of 11 years. Defendant, please rise." Rex Varen Call stood. He straightened his spine. He lifted his chin. "How do you answer these charges?" "I do not recognize this court," he said. His voice was flat and proud. "The Vextaro Dominion is a sovereign power. You have no legal authority over its officers. I demand immediate release and transport to neutral territory for a proper diplomatic resolution." I had expected exactly this. I had prepared for it. "Noted, the court will now present its authority. I will explain it once slowly, and then we will proceed." I picked up the document in front of me. "The United Earth Judicial Authority does not, on its own, claim authority over the Vextaro. You are correct in that. We would have no right to try you alone. However, over the past 60 days, 37 species have signed a joint declaration, formally establishing a coalition court for the purpose of this trial. These species represent every culture whose children were taken, plus those who wish to stand in support. The declaration was ratified by the governing bodies of each signatory species, including those that had never signed a joint legal instrument before. The coalition court has claimed jurisdiction over you based on the widely accepted principle, recognized in some form in every major legal tradition in charted space, that crimes against children cross all borders. Your own Vextaro legal tradition recognizes this principle, in fact, though it limits it to Vextaro children. We have simply extended it to the children of every species. The coalition court has therefore asked me to preside. I have accepted. This is not a human court today. This is the court the galaxy should have built decades ago. We simply got tired of waiting. Your objection is overruled. The trial will proceed. You may be seated." Rex Varen Call stared at me. His face had gone from proud to confused. He sat down slowly. I turned to the prosecution. "You may present your opening evidence." The lead prosecutor was a woman named Anna Blake, young, sharp, with dark hair tied back and a steady voice. She rose and began presenting the case. The evidence came in waves. First, the Vextaro's own records recovered from the auction stations, buyer lists, sale prices, shipping manifests, dates going back 11 years. 4,216 children across 19 species bought and sold through the Vextaro network. Every name was read aloud, every single one. This took 2 full days. I did not rush it. I wanted every name spoken. I wanted every name entered into the record. I wanted the families watching from 100 worlds to hear their child's name spoken in a place of justice, perhaps for the first time. The High Magnate's face changed as the names were read. He had not expected this. He had expected quick summaries, numbers. He had not expected every single child to be given a voice, one at a time, hour after hour. On the third day, I called witnesses. The first witness was a Moravec's mother named Liravel. She was the woman Ambassador Cyril had met in the plaza, the one with the photograph of her granddaughter. Her silver skin was lined with age and grief, but she walked to the witness stand on her own, with her head high. "Tell the court, please, about your granddaughter." Her name was Mila. She was 8 years old when she was taken. She loved to sing. She had a small voice, but a true one. Her mother said she could hear Mila singing from 3 rooms away when she was happy. She was on a school trip. The transport was stopped by a Vextaro patrol. We were told there had been an accident. We were told there were no bodies to recover. We held a memorial without a body. We held it twice, because the first time none of us could finish speaking. I did not sing for 9 years after that. I do not know if I will ever sing again. But I came here today from very far away, because I wanted to say her name in a place where it would be written down. Mila Vel. That was my granddaughter's name. She was a real person. She was loved. She mattered. Please write it down. I wrote it down myself. I wrote it on the official record by hand in ink. "It is written, Liravel, thank you." She bowed her head and returned to her seat. The Vextaro defense attorney stood up at that point. He was a thin, nervous Vextaro, clearly terrified of his own client. "Your Honor, we object to non-human witnesses. They have no standing in a human judicial system." I looked at him. I let the silence stretch for 5 long seconds. "Counselor, I have already explained the coalition court's authority. I explained it in clear language. I explained it slowly. If you were not listening, that is your concern, not mine. Every species whose children were taken has standing in this court. Now sit down. You will not interrupt a witness again." He sat down. He did not stand up again for the rest of the trial. We called witnesses for 4 more days. Parents, siblings, grandparents, teachers who had taught the children before they were taken. A Tilani father who had stopped saying his daughter's name out loud for 6 years because the grief was too heavy. He said her name in my courtroom. He said it 3 times, Lena, Lena, Lena. Then he sat down and wept, and no one in the room made a sound. After the witnesses, we called the recovered children themselves. Only the ones who wished to speak. Only the older ones. We did not force anyone. Several of them asked to come. A Moravec's boy, 14 years old, who had been held for 6 years, spoke about what he remembered. A human girl, 12 years old, spoke about what she had seen at the station. They spoke with courage that I will remember for the rest of my life. When all the testimony was complete, I turned to Rex Varon Call. "Defendant, do you wish to say anything before the verdict?" He stood up. He looked around the courtroom. I think, for the first time, he understood where he was. He understood that the galaxy was watching. He understood that every defense he had prepared, every excuse, every claim of sovereignty, had become nothing in the light of the names that had been spoken in this room. He opened his mouth. He closed it. He opened it again. "I did not personally harm any child," he said finally. "I was an administrator. I signed papers. I was not involved in." Defendant: "Yes. You signed papers." "Yes. You signed papers that caused 4,216 children to be taken from their families and sold across the stars." The system was already in place. I did not create it. "But you continued it. You signed the papers that kept it running. You personally profited from many of the transactions. Is that correct?" He was silent. "Is that correct, defendant?" "Yes," he whispered. "Thank you. Be seated." I stood up. The courtroom stood up with me. I took a long moment before I spoke. "The verdict of this court is guilty, on every count, without exception. However, the sentence is not mine to deliver alone. I will not carry that on behalf of every species that has suffered. Each signatory species of the Coalition Court has prepared a recommendation. I will now read them together as a single sentence, because that is how this galaxy has spoken. The Vextaral Dominion is, as of this hour, dissolved as a sovereign entity. Its ruling council is removed from power. Its assets are liquidated and will be used for the care of the recovered children and the support of their families. Its territory is placed under a trusteeship, administered by a consortium of every affected species, until such time as the Vextaral population is ready to build new institutions based on the rights of all sentient beings, including their children. Rex Varen Kahl and the other members of the ruling council will each face individual trials for their personal roles. They will not face harm. They will face accountability, which is far harder. They will live out their sentences in secure facilities where they will be required, every day, to read the names of the children who were taken under their rule, and to understand, slowly and completely, what their signatures cost. This is the sentence. It is final. There will be no appeal to a higher court because there is no higher court. The galaxy itself has spoken. Rex Varen Kahl stared at me in silence. "This is an act of war," he said at last. "No, defendant. It is an act of accountability. You have simply never seen one at this scale." I banged the gavel once. "This court is adjourned. Marshals, please remove the defendant, and bring in the next one. We have, by my count, 4,216 names to answer for, and I have every intention of answering for each of them before I am done." The courtroom rose. The galaxy watched. A new order had begun, and the old one would never return. I am standing on a hillside on a world called Haven's Reach, and the children are playing in the long grass below me. My name is Harold Brooks. I am 64 years old now, though I feel older most days. I retired from active fleet command 3 months ago after 40 years of service. The Prime Minister asked me to stay on in an advisory role. I said yes, because I am not yet ready to stop watching. A full year has passed since we entered the Vextaral Reach. A year since I gave the order to take the fleet in. A year since my life, and the lives of every soul in the 7th Fleet, and in truth the lives of every sentient being in the known galaxy, changed. I have come to Haven's Reach for the opening ceremony of its first school. This world is the first of what the galaxy now calls the Sanctuary Worlds, funded jointly by 37 species, protected by a combined fleet of thousands of ships, drawn from every signatory culture, administered by no single government, but rather by a rotating council of representatives, built in 8 months on a world that had been empty forest and clear rivers and open skies. The children playing in the grass below me are some of the ones we recovered, but not only them. Their friends are here too, their new friends. Moravec's children with silver skin running alongside human children with brown skin and pink skin and every shade between. A Tilani girl, small and serious, carefully explaining something to a Krillian boy whose fur is dark gray. Children of species I could not have named 2 years ago, playing a game that seems to involve throwing a bright yellow ball and laughing very loudly when someone misses. It is such a simple thing, children playing. I have seen it every day of my life on countless worlds. But this today is different, because these children would not be here if we had not gone. Most of them would not be alive, or they would be somewhere terrible, or they would be nowhere at all. And the galaxy as a whole would still be looking the other way while the strong took from the weak, and the weak said nothing, and everyone pretended not to know. We did not build a perfect galaxy. I want to be clear about that. I am not telling myself a simple story. There are still bad people out there. There are still cruel systems. There are still injustices in corners we have not yet reached. But we built something new. We built a galaxy where, for the first time, the small species do not believe they have to suffer alone. Where, for the first time, the large species understand that power without responsibility has a cost that can be collected. Ambassador Cyril Thon comes up the hillside beside me. She is older too, her gray fur lined with silver now. She walks slowly, leaning on a simple wooden cane. She has retired from her diplomatic post, but she comes to the sanctuary worlds often. She says it helps her sleep at night. Harold, Cyril. We stand together in silence for a while. This is one of the things I like best about Cyril. We do not need to speak to understand each other. After a long time she speaks. Do you remember what I asked you, the first time we stood together after the war ended? You asked me if I thought it was worth it. And what did you say? I said I was not sure yet. I said I would let you know when I was. And are you sure now, Harold? I watched the children. I watched a small girl with dark hair run past, laughing, her face bright with sun. I recognized her. Amara, she was 7 now. She lived on this world with her adoptive family, a kind couple from a small coastal town on Earth who had loved her from the moment she stepped off the shuttle. She had not spoken for the first 3 months after we brought her home. She spoke now. She did not stop speaking, in fact. She read books above her age level. She drew pictures of spaceships and gave them as gifts to anyone who visited. She saw me on the hillside. Her whole face changed. She broke away from her game and ran up the slope, her arms wide, shouting my name. Admiral Harold, I made something for you. I knelt down as she reached me. She put her small arms around my neck and hugged me tight. She smelled like sunshine and grass and whatever small flower she had been picking. She pulled back and held out a piece of paper, folded carefully into quarters. I opened it. It was a drawing. A large silver ship, unmistakably the Ironville flying through the stars. Below the ship, on a green and blue world, stood a crowd of small stick figures of many different shapes and colors. They were all holding hands. Above them, in large, careful letters, she had written, "Thank you for coming to get me. Thank you for getting the others too." I looked at the drawing for a long time. I did not trust my voice. "Amara," I said at last, "this is the most beautiful thing anyone has ever given me. You can put it on your wall." I will. I will put it right next to the one of my granddaughter, Lily. I would like to meet Lily someday. I would like that too, sweetheart. I will bring her next time. She hugged me again. Then she ran off to rejoin her friends. I watched her go. My hand was shaking slightly when I folded the drawing. Cyril was watching me, her dark eyes soft. "Harold." "Yes." "You have not answered my question." I stood up slowly. My knees creaked. I looked out over the fields, the playing children, the distant towers of the new school, the soft blue sky of this quiet world we had built from nothing in 8 months because 37 species had decided together that it needed to exist. Yes, Cyril, it was worth it, every cost, every hard night, every loss, every hard decision. And do you want to know how I know? Please. Somewhere out there right now, somewhere in the dark parts of the galaxy we have not yet reached, there is a person thinking about harming a child, maybe for profit, maybe for cruelty, maybe for some terrible reason of their own. And that person, Cyril, that person is afraid. They are afraid in a way that no such person would have been afraid 2 years ago. They are afraid because they remember what happened to the Vextarl. They are afraid because they know that any species in this galaxy, no matter how small, can now call out for help and be heard. They are afraid because they have learned that the cost of touching a child is no longer small. Maybe that fear stops them. Maybe it stops them for one day. Maybe it stops them for a year. Maybe it stops them forever. I do not know. But somewhere right now, a child is not being harmed because of what we did. We will never meet that child. We will never know their name. They will never know ours. But they will grow up. They will laugh. They will eat dinner with their family. They will look up at the stars and never know that the stars looked out for them once for a moment, a year ago, on a hillside on a world called Haven's Reach, while an old admiral and an old ambassador stood and talked. Cyril was quiet for a long moment. Then she nodded. That is worth every cost, Harold. Yes, my friend, it is. We stood together until the sun began to set. The children were called in for dinner. Amara waved to me from across the field. I waved back. The first stars of Haven's Reach appeared in the deepening sky. A year ago, I had given an order, and 240 ships had turned toward a darkness no one else was willing to enter. A year ago, a prime minister had told me to make sure the galaxy understood, without any room for doubt, what happens when someone touches our children. A year ago, a Krillian ambassador had walked across a plaza and spoken words her species had not spoken in 200 years. A year ago, a captain named Aliner had lifted a small girl out from under a grate and had not put her down until she was safe. A year ago, a chancellor named Evelyn had stood in a courtroom and said the words the galaxy had been waiting generations to hear. None of us had done it alone, none of us could have. But together, we had done something that would echo in this galaxy for 1,000 years. We had shown that goodness was not weakness, that patience was not consent, that the quiet kindness of a decent species, when finally roused by something truly unforgivable, could move mountains and remake the order of 1,000 worlds. We had shown the galaxy who we were, and we had not done it with anger or with pride. We had done it with 47 children, and every child we found after them, held carefully and carried home. I turned to walk back down the hillside. Sire walked beside me, her cane tapping softly on the stones. Below us, lights were coming on in the windows of homes that had not existed a year ago, full of children who had not been safe a year ago, on a world that had been empty a year ago. Tomorrow I would fly back to Earth. I would file my report. I would visit my granddaughter Lily, and I would bring her the drawing Amara had made, because Lily had been asking to see it. I would eat dinner with my family. I would sleep well. I would wake up and I would continue to do the work, small as it now was, of an old man who had been asked to watch over something new. But tonight, on this hillside under these new stars, I allowed myself one moment of something I rarely allowed. I allowed myself to be proud. Proud of my species, who had chosen action when silence would have been easier. Proud of the 37 species who had stood beside us, many of whom had never stood beside anyone before. Proud of the children who had been brave in ways no child should ever have to be brave, and who were learning, one sunny afternoon at a time, how to be children again. Proud most of all of a small girl named Amara who had drawn a picture of a ship protecting a world, and who had written the words, "Thank you for coming to get me. Thank you for getting the others too." Those words, I think, will be on my gravestone one day. Not my rank, not my medals, not the battles, just those words from a 7-year-old girl on a hillside at the end of a year that changed the galaxy. Thank you for coming to get me. Thank you for getting the others too. The stars came out. The children laughed in the distance. And somewhere out in the dark, I knew, a person who had thought about harming a child had just decided, quietly and without knowing why, not to. That was enough. That was everything. That was why we had gone. And that was why, if the galaxy ever needed it again, we would go again. Every single time. Until every child, on every world was safe. No matter how long it took. No matter what it cost. We were humanity, and we had finally learned what that meant. The end.